Hey guys, it's Meya. Welcome back to the channel, and thanks for being part of this wild manhwa journey with me. Now, let's dive into today's story.
Back at the gambling house, Boss Duga was grinning, watching the fighters brawl in the ring. Frim, summoned to pitch a new gambling idea, nervously offered the one concept that met all the criteria, a boxing-style competition that combined gambling with excitement but without the brutality of weapon fights. Boss was still in disbelief that a kid could come up with something so well-known and profitable, but he listened. Frim looked down uneasily as she explained, I wanted to create a game where the gambling itself is the fun, the thrill of competition, not just the bet. I improvised some rules on the spot to make it unique. Boss nodded, impressed, praising her. The upside? The slaves live longer. That's a plus, he said with a smile. Grateful, Frim added, next on the agenda is cleaning up the gambling house. Even a little effort could improve the slaves' living conditions. Boss looked puzzled. Cleaning. It'll help bring in more respectable customers if the place is cleaner, she reasoned. Boss agreed it was a good idea and said it was time to act on it. Then, after a moment's pause, he asked coldly, but do the slaves' living conditions really matter? Frim fidgeted. They'd be easier to sell if they were healthy and strong, she said, clenching her fists. Also, it might be amusing to watch the scrawny ones scrubbing the floors. Boss smirked. Good logic. Handle the cleaning in your spare time. Yes, sir. Frim replied happily, though inside, she thought it was still a setup where people got hurt. Even without weapons, danger lingered. Watching a man drag a knocked-out fighter out of the ring, she sighed. Still, it's a relief they get to live a little longer. Boss then ordered her, kill any slave who mouths off during cleaning. Frim refused. I can't. That'd reduce the number of workers, cause problems. Is that so? Good, Boss replied. Frim looked down, sadness flickering behind her eyes. Besides, I'm still scared of seeing people die. Boss asked sharply if she said something. She smiled and brushed it off. Swing by my office later. I have something for you. Later, in his office, Boss handed her a heavy book. A reward for your hard work, he said. A water magic grimoire. Not sure if it works, but maybe you'll find it useful. Otherwise, I was going to sell it. Thank you, Frim said, flipping through the arcane text. The language was otherworldly, hard to understand. She thought back to her old life, remembering how much she loved studying, but she didn't know where she'd studied before. A headache crept in from overthinking. Suddenly, Fatso and Morgan started bickering, breaking her concentration. Boss, clearly annoyed, yelled at them to follow Frim's lead and find a way to make money. Frim smiled and tucked the book under her arm as she left. Back in her room, she stared at the grimoire with a mix of excitement and overwhelm. The book detailed water magic in dense, complex terms, but she caught the basics. Magic was created by spirits drifting nearby, responding when called by a caster's power. She patted the book. Put simply, you channel magic through your body, through attributes and properties of matter. The key is visualization. Standing, she tried it out. Oh, water, take shape. A small stream materialized, shifting into the shape of a pen. Impressed, she tried writing with it, but water being H2O, wasn't exactly practical for ink. Thinking hard, she muttered, alkaline electrolyzed water, come out. A small wibbly blob of water appeared. She laughed softly. I can create anything made of hydrogen and oxygen. Curious, she shouted, O3 ozone, come out. Nothing. Won't be that easy to just call a chemical compound, she muttered. Suddenly, her nose twitched. A sharp, acrid smell hit her, her eyes widened, and she shut her nose, coughing violently as she rushed out of the room. Still sweating, she smiled nervously. That was something. She thought about ozone. Machines mostly produce it, it can remove odors, but it's toxic. Her heart pounded as she realized she might have just done something dangerous again. She decided to take a break and grabbed a quick snack. Back at Boss Duga's office, Frim sat beside him, looking dejected. He noticed and asked, What's wrong? Just a little hungry, she replied, adjusting in her seat. Eat whatever you want, he said. She munched a cookie, but her expression stayed distant. Suddenly, she brightened. I learned a new spell. Quick learner, Boss grinned. What kind? Poison. I think, she answered hesitantly. Boss frowned, repeating poison. Frim hurried to explain. It can remove bad odors and purify a whole room, but it releases a poisonous scent or spirit that makes the air awful. Standing in front of him, eyes closed and hands wide, she declared, That's the magic. Praise me. Boss, caught off guard and sweating, said, Oh, okay. Not sure I get it, but good job. Frim looked away cunningly, thinking, since she couldn't say ozone, she had to explain it in the weirdest way possible. She invited him, maybe we could try it together sometime. If you remember the feeling, you'll know when there's poison in the air. Boss patted her head, smiling. Good subordinate. Keep it up. Then, crossing his arms, he asked, So, are you saying bad smells are poison? Well, in a way, yeah, Frim replied. Boss grabbed the couch armrest, eyes sharp. Cleaning. Frim blinked. Mr. Boss. He continued, I know I said I'd leave it to you, but... He jumped up, yelling at his subordinates, Once the gambling house closes, clean everything from top to bottom. Frim scrambled after Fatso and Morgan, broom in hand. They looked utterly confused. Crossing her arms, Frim thought, I'm not sure how it turned into this, but hey, even if I didn't ask for it, it's an opportunity. Maybe this is a good thing. Later, Boss shouted, That's not clean enough. One more pass. Frim watched, puzzled, as everyone scrubbed furiously. She called out, The only place left is where the slaves live, Before she could finish, Boss said, I'll leave it to you. Frim asked if Mr. Logan could go with her. Since she was small, they might not take her seriously. Boss looked down seriously and repeated, Logan? Fine. Do what you want. Eager, Frim walked off, thinking the cleaning wouldn't finish in one day, but with Boss's haunted look, she wondered what kind of poison-related PTSD he had. Shrugging, she was happy to have the freedom to handle the slave quarters her way. Meeting Logan again, she bowed. Looking forward to working with you. Logan caught off guard, No need to bow, Miss Frim. In her cute Frim-chan era, she asked him to help direct the slaves. Logan nodded. I understand. Keep a close eye, they don't know what's coming. Standing on a stool before the slaves with Logan behind her, Frim clenched her hands and announced, We're taking a bath now. Murmurs rose among the slaves. Leaning to Frim, Logan whispered, Are we even allowed to do this? Frim smiled confidently, I was told to do as I please. So yes. She turned to a big bucket, gesturing for the slaves to start. Internally, she thought she needed to fill it first. She poured water with magic and tried to warm it. Warm water, she called out, and to her surprise, it worked. Her eyes went wobbly at the steaming water. Finally, they'll get a proper bath. But before she could finish the thought, she collapsed. Miss? Logan shouted. Frim dreamed of the boy she had saved, watching him play with a ball on an escalator. She approached him and said she was glad he was safe. The boy stopped, locked eyes with her, and quietly asked, Why did you save me? Frim jolted awake, reaching out in fear, but it was just a dream. Noticing Boss Duggar in the room, she quickly turned and confessed that the collapse at the slave quarters was her fault, and the slaves shouldn't be punished on her account. Boss Duggar scratched his head, sighed, and said fine. Then, to her surprise, he grounded her to her room for the whole day before muttering, Good grief, and leaving. Frim was speechless, staring down at her blanket, thinking she never expected to collapse like that. Alone, she summoned water and mused to herself about how she really needed to be more careful where she practiced new spells. Watching a small bubble of water float in the air, she said aloud, I still can't make ice. She reached out and dispersed the bubble, thinking about how she could heat water but not cool it down. Maybe she needed to visualize it differently, or just needed more practice. Exhausted and unsure, she dozed off. Moments later, she woke again, realizing she had fallen asleep twice. She muttered, Maybe I'm just really worn out. Getting up, she noticed food on the table. Confused, she asked herself if Boss Duggar had left it for her. No way, she said in disbelief. Later, Frim stood beside a worried Logan. She bowed deeply, apologizing for causing him concern when she collapsed. Logan still looked uneasy and asked if she was feeling better now. "It's totally fine," Frim said brightly, eager to start the cleaning again. Logan hesitated, then knelt down and took her hands gently. "We're all grateful to you. But it's not just about that. If something happened to you, our fate would be left to chance. Please, take care of yourself. We might lose our heads if this happens again." Frim sweated nervously, muttering, "I'll be extra careful. I'm really, really sorry." Logan stood up and rallied the slaves, telling them to pull themselves together and get back to cleaning. Cheerful Frim spread water across the floor as the slaves moved with buckets and mops. Logan stopped beside her and asked if she was all right, since she'd been using magic non-stop.
Frim-chan smiled brightly.
"As long as it's not hot water I'm making, I'm fine." Logan nodded, impressed.
Incredible.
"Have you formed a contract with a spirit?"
Frim shook her head.
"No, but for some reason, I can make lots of water." The cleaning continued in earnest. When it was time to call it a day, Frim prepared a bucket of warm water and asked Logan to share it with everyone who had worked especially hard. She muttered quietly that she hadn't taken a bath herself since arriving. Teary-eyed, she admitted she really wanted one. Logan smiled warmly and thanked her. Glancing aside, Frim noticed a particular slave staring daggers at her. She quickly looked away, thinking about how many strangers were around and how some glared as if they wanted to kill her. "Please save me," she muttered under her breath, then left the quarters. Back in her room, a new shelf had been added. Boss Duga entered, carrying a pile of books. Noticing Frim already seated with a book open, he asked how her magic training was coming along as he put the books on the shelf. "It's going well," Frim said cheerfully. He smiled. "Glad to hear it. Keep at it." Frim snapped the book shut and asked if it was okay to practice magic while doing her cleaning. Boss smiled. "Go ahead." Happy, Frim-chan headed to the rooftop, looking out over the city. It seemed no one ever came up here. Looking down from the edge, she muttered aloud but got no response, coming to terms that no one would be passing by any time soon. She set up a firm stance and declared she wanted to try controlling oxygen and hydrogen. Since she had produced ozone before, she reasoned she should be able to manipulate the other elements that make up water. "Oxygen fuels fire," she said, stepping away from a small fire pit to visualize better. Facing the flames, she extended her hands and quietly asked oxygen to emerge. Nothing happened. Frustrated, she tried again several times with no success. Lying back on the floor, she screamed, "I can't do it." Still lying there, she wondered if the oxygen was dispersing into the air because of the wind, or if the ratio between hydrogen and oxygen mattered. She remembered something about that from her rocket science studies. She thought about how terrifying it was to experiment with explosives while standing so close to the fire. Getting up, she decided to try a different approach. She conjured water in one hand as a shield and attempted to trap oxygen inside a water rod in the other. But the rod was too squishy and broke apart. "This is way harder than I expected," she thought, but felt hopeful that with more practice, she could master it. She conjured water again and practiced forming different shapes. Simple shapes were easy, but complex ones were still a struggle. Shaping a water butterfly, Frim let it flutter free. She reached out to catch it, but it darted away. Flabbergasted, she thought, "This is all I can make for now?" Hiding her face in shame, she thought how humiliating it was to fail at catching her own creation. Getting back up, she retraced her steps to the core problem. Closing the distance was tough. Suddenly, an idea struck her. If the oxygen is dispersing into the air, I just need to give it more structure. She summoned both oxygen and hydrogen, wrapping them tightly in water. Casting her magic, a cloudy water blob appeared. Thinking it had worked, she picked it up and hurled it at the fire stick. There was an immediate explosion. Frim's surprised face was caught off guard as smoke billowed from the aftermath. She stared in disbelief. A broken piece of the stick fell into the back alley. Leaning closer to pick it up, she was shocked to find a crowd of people gathered there. She recognized one face, Lucats, the enemy mafia boss from the photo Fatso had shown her. "Why are they here?" she muttered, noting how spot on the sketch had been. Suddenly, Lucats called out to his men, alerting them something had fallen. He looked up, just as someone emerged from a building shouting, "Are we under attack?" Frim crouched low in fear, her mouth clamped shut as screams erupted behind her. Lookats was spotted. Mr. Boss's subordinate appeared and demanded, "What is Lookats doing in our turf?" Shit. We've been spotted. Lookats yelled to his men. The subordinate called out for reinforcements. Let's show Lookats some pepper. Frim, realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, decided to crawl away unnoticed. She needed to report this to Mr. Boss. She ran to his office, shouting his name, and told him about the fight breaking out outside. Unfazed, Mr. Boss said he was already aware and told her to find somewhere safe to hide. He then strode toward the commotion. Morga and Fatso tried to reassure Frim. "Sit it out and play it cool, we'll wrap this up quickly." Left alone and scared, Frim thought maybe it was good she had interrupted them before they could strike first. Sweat poured down her face as she realized, if word got out she caused the explosion. She didn't want to imagine the horrors that would come. They'd definitely turn me into a weapon if they found out this little hamster can do explosive magic. Her imagination ran wild. She heard Fatso and Morga's laughter, boasting about how they had taught Lookats a lesson he wouldn't forget. Jumping up, Frim rushed over cheerfully, holding a cup of water. "Well done," she said, offering the cup. Mr. Boss, standing with them, smiled and said, "So this is where you've been hiding. Thanks for the water." Morga boasted loudly about his gallantry, wishing Frim had seen him in action. Fatso held him back, saying he had taken down more enemies. This triggered a squabble between the two. Boss turned to Frim and asked if she was okay. She nodded. Pausing, he called her again. "Did something happen? You said you were off to practice magic." Grinning guiltily, Frim answered vaguely, trying to dodge the question. Seeing her reluctance, Mr. Boss shrugged and walked away, telling her to forget it. Frim sweated profusely, wondering if he had noticed something. It's a relief he didn't press it, but if he ever finds out. Her imagination spun out again. "They definitely use me to raid Lookat's turf." She shivered at the thought. Turning to leave, she muttered, "I'm leaving," with a guilty smile, deciding to keep her secret. She ran off quickly. Mr. Boss watched her from behind, smiling creepily, as if he knew exactly what was going on. Back at the slave quarters, Frim cleaned alongside the slaves and Mr. Logan. Once they finished tidying up for the day, Logan called out to her. "We're done sorting everything here." Frim smiled gratefully. "Thanks, you're a lifesaver." Logan shrugged modestly. "Please, stop exaggerating. We're just former soldiers, physical tasks are all we can offer." She shook her head firmly. "I couldn't have organized everyone without you. I hope I can keep counting on you." Clenching his fists, Logan replied, "Take care," then left. Frim watched him go, thinking how kind he was. She imagined him relaxing in a cafe in modern-day Japan, sipping a drink with a white dog by his side. Since she was done here, she figured it was time to head back to Mr. Boss and wrap up the accounting. Just then, Mr. Boss called out to her. "There's a noble I'd like you to meet." Frim, counting coins, looked up puzzled. Reassuring her, he added, "It's someone I know, so no need to put on airs." Suddenly, someone knocked on the office door. "Back already?" a voice asked. Mr. Boss gestured for the visitor to enter. The newcomer glanced around. "That place is cleaned up nicely." Mr. Boss nodded. "The gambling house has also grown popular lately." He then called out to Frim, "What the hell are you doing there?" Frim knelt on all fours, bowing low. "I was told not to look directly at a noble without permission," she replied. The man walked over, grabbed her belt, and lifted her up like a sack. "Relax," he said. "Even if my face looks scary, I'm one of the good nobles." Frim looked up and froze. Before her eyes stood a cleaner, sharper version of Mr. Boss. "Mr. Boss," she gasped in shock. Boss Duga laughed heartily at her reaction, still holding her. The cleaner man smiled. "Oh man, you didn't tell her?" Frim stared in confusion. The noble introduced himself as Varsal Drajan, Duga's brother. Frim looked between them with a worried expression. "Identical twins." Introducing herself, she said, "You really do look alike." Varsal grinned. "Yeah, I'm the one she helped last time with the accounting firm.
Frim fidgeted. Liar.
He laughed until tears came to his eyes.
Yes, I am. You're the best.
Frim looked on, confused. Duga told his brother he'd been mean but could sense something. He gently lowered Frim, who had been suspended in the air all this while. All right then, he said, turning to Frim. Would you mind working with my brother for a bit? Frim, confused, was left speechless. They sat around a table as Mr. Boss explained her role. You're to clean the Drajan family statues.
Clean the statues?
Frim asked, glaring at him. Simple brushes aren't cutting it, Mr. Boss said. I thought your water magic could do the trick.
Frim looked away.
Easier said than done. She internally worried, they'll axe me if I damage their statues. Raising her hand, she asked if she could speak openly. Varsal grinned and gave her the go-ahead. Frim started, it's tough to wash grime indoors because it spreads everywhere. Varsal urged her to continue. Depending on the sturdiness of the statue, they might get damaged during cleaning. Raising both hands in the air, she added, I can't take responsibility for any damage.
Varsal chuckled. Understood. Go for it.
Frim looked away, shedding internal tears as she agreed to do her best. Later, chugging a cup of wine, Mr. Boss explained, Varsal is what's called a robe noble. He oversees the region but doesn't own the land, though he's still the big shot around here. Frim wondered, so he's basically like a mayor? Mr. Boss continued, since twins are considered a bad omen, he got the boot from the Drajan family, though they've stayed close. Varsal essentially runs things down there now. Intrigued, Frim said, that's impressive. Cheerfully, she asked, why was he cast out if you two are identical twins?
What difference could there be?
Mr. Boss flinched and asked her to repeat the question with a pissed expression. Realizing she'd said too much, Frim started sweating profusely.
She apologized in horror.
Chugging more wine, Mr. Boss said not to worry and answered her question. Varsal has earth magic. Most of the bricks used in the capital are his creations.
Me? I had nothing.
A wisp of sadness crossed his face. Cutting him off, Frim said, but Mr. Boss, you have plenty of good qualities.
He clenched his fist.
Yeah, luckily, I learned some empowering magic, so no matter what, I can get back up as long as I have my fists.
Plus, I rake in good money.
He released his fist, looked at her, and smiled.
I've got some good subordinates too.
Frim, too stunned to speak, looked up at him. Trying to break the ice, he poured some wine into her cup. Brother's treat, he muttered. Thanking him, Frim thought, I'm just a little girl, is this really okay? Suddenly coughing, someone asked if she was all right. Later, we see a drained Frim who had thrown up. Mr. Boss asked, are you all right? Frim told him everything was spinning. Picking her up, he told her to get everything out before leaving. Apologizing for the alcohol, he said he couldn't send her out alone. He handed her over to Logan and asked that he and Almaroy follow her. We find out Almaroy is the glaring slave from earlier. She remembered his cold stare. She thought about how he looked like part human, part lizard man, a combat slave. Mr. Boss added Pakis, who looked pissed, to the list. Pakis walked forward, and Mr. Boss told him to make sure he does what Frim says.
Pakis nodded. My lord, may I?
Logan asked.
What is it?
Mr. Boss replied. Logan explained there were some places only women could enter. Since they couldn't escort Miss Frim there, it might be wise to bring a woman with them. Mr. Boss called it a good point and asked Logan to pick 1 or 2 women. Walking past Logan and Frim, Pakis muttered under his breath, don't get cocky, brat.
Goody.
He strode by with a pocket dagger tucked into the back belt of his dress. Frim glanced up at his back, frowning.
What's that guy's deal?
Seriously, hands off the knife already. Turning to her, Logan said, that's Makia, a female combat slave. She's a bit rough around the edges, but she gets the job done. He gently set Frim back on her feet. Frim asked about the second person. Logan called out to Almaroy, got anyone to recommend? Almaroy glanced at them and replied, only my little sister Talarine comes to mind. Walking away, he added, she should still be around here, if she hasn't been sold off yet.
Frim was puzzled.
How does he just drop that bomb like it's nothing? Just then, a cheerful buff six-packed woman with spiky teeth approached.
I'm Mokia, she introduced herself.
Behind her stood a younger, more girly-looking lady who shyly said, I'm Talarine.
Nice to meet you.
Talarine's eyes caught a glimpse of her brother. Clasping her hands together, her face lit up.
Brother.
The guy looked away, avoiding her gaze. Logan called out to Talarine, reminding her, we're here to work. Saddened, she replied, okay, and followed him away while Frim stared after her. At the Drajan estate, Varsal, who had been waiting for Frim, came out with his arms wide open.
Frim-chan, she greeted cheerfully. I'm looking forward to working with you.
Noticing Pakis, Varsal ruffled his hair in excitement and asked, so he came to welcome me?
Pakis replied with displeasure in his eyes, yeah.
Varsal led them to the statues.
Frim gasped.
That's a lot of statues. Hands on his waist, Varsal explained, 60 in total. They portray all the nobles of this country.
Frim frowned. They're filthy.
Plus, the stones look brittle. If anything breaks while I'm using magic, I'm not taking the blame, all right? With one eye closed, Varsal said, no problem. This is after polishing, anything is worth a try at this point.
He tapped a statue and laughed.
But still, it's not good to rip them all to pieces.
Let's start with this one.
Muttering, should be fine to destroy this one, Frim thought it was odd some could be destroyed. She walked toward the statue and asked, everyone, take a step back so I can start spraying. Varsal replied sure, but then moved closer, making sounds like ooh and hum as she splashed water on the statue. Frim glared intensely at him, making Varsal back away. Don't give me that look, he muttered.
I'll watch from here.
Turning away, he grumbled, I wanted a front row seat. Frim turned to the others, who were staring at them, and asked, is something wrong? Talarine spoke up, you're amazing for handling a noble's work without hesitation, especially given how young you are.
Frim cackled. Is that so?
She shrugged, it's just something I get right once in a while. Then she clarified everyone's roles. Mr. Logan, assist me by my side. The rest of you clean the surrounding area. Just then, Pakis clicked his tongue, loosening a knot in his head. Angrily, he marched toward Frim.
Climbed the ranks, huh, Frim?
Now you're giving me orders.
His face contorted with rage. You're a joke.
Frim thought, guess he's had enough. Suddenly, someone called out to him, reminding him, this job was entrusted to us by the boss. Pakis, not paying attention, snapped, like I give a damn. He clenched his fist and lunged toward Frim's face, shouting, you should know your damn place. But all the slaves except Talarine rushed to stop him.
Shock washed over Pakis's face.
Logan stared him down.
You were ordered to protect Miss Frim.
Twisting Pakis's hand behind his back, Logan shouted, let him go. Holding Pakis's other hand, Logan yelled, what the hell do you think you're doing? Pakis kept shouting profanities at the scared Frim. Logan looked to Frim for permission to subdue him. A little sad, she granted it. Logan put Pakis in an armlock chokehold, shouting, you filthy slave.
Fuck. Frim panicked.
Logan, don't kill him. Pakis kept yelling he'd kill Frim, until he finally passed out.
Mokia asked Frim, are you all right?
Frim replied, yeah, but inside she was terrified. Tears welled up in her eyes as she thought, this is really bad. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. It helps us out and tells YouTube to show it to more awesome people like you.